Welcome to the Ed Leader's Edge podcast, where we interview innovators and thought leaders in the field of education who are helping students thrive. I'm your host, Ed Madison. I'm a professor and researcher at the University of Oregon, an educational consultant, and serve as executive director of the Journalistic Learning Initiative, a nonprofit organization that empowers elementary, middle, and high school students to discover their voice, improve academic outcomes, and become self-directed learners through project-based storytelling. Welcome to our program. Welcome back to the podcast. Dan Wold is an award-winning educator, keynote speaker, workshop leader, and top performance expert in the field of education. He's a former teacher, principal, superintendent, serving communities for nearly 40 plus years, actually. And he joins us today from the Lake Tahoe area in Nevada. I'm envious. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Ed.
Yeah. I know one of the topics you speak on quite a bit is school safety and as it relates to bullying. And so let's talk about that a bit because, we can get into the mental health impact of bullying. But tell me about some of the things that you've discovered and speak about related to bullying.
Well, bullying has been with us as long as I've been in education, including when I was a student, of course. And it's the numbers show that bullying isn't really on the increase as far as the number of students who are bullies, but what's on the increase is the amount of different ways and the amount of time that the students who do tend to bully spend time bullying. And so it used to be you might have the bully on the playground or on the bus, but once you got home, you hung with your brothers, your cousins, your friends, whomever. And now that follows you, of course, because we have these supercomputers in our pockets called iPhones or whatever they might be. And so the aspect of bullying through social media, the cyberbullying, is what has increased so much.
And so, I mean, this is a predicament that is, that I think every school across the nation is dealing with, particularly at the middle school level. I know from my own personal experience, having had middle schoolers when, in our family, when Snapchat became a thing, and there was this notion that they could just put anything out there or challenge others to, put all kinds of things out there, and they would disappear. So how do you advise, in your speaking to administrators about this, how do you advise that they kind of impact this issue?
Yeah, and you hit it on the head that 11 to 14-year-old is the one that seem the most vulnerable to that. And, part of it is, I think, that all the people that are associated with those teenagers, their teachers, their counselors, and especially their parents, need to keep reminding them that social media isn't real. It's a lot of what you see on social media is things that are made up. The psychologists tell us that the brain at that area has lost a lot of its frontal lobe development, and so people post things not knowing that they're going to see that person tomorrow at school, right? And so, as you said so well, students say all kinds of things without thinking. And I remember when I was principal, one of the hot points on campus was when kids are getting off the bus in the morning, because that's where they're confronting the people that were posting things about them the night before, into the wee hours, by the way. I think one of the things that we encourage parents to do is, at bedtime, those devices go into the family safe or wherever it might be, because, you might think that your student is sleeping, but so many times an angry mother would come in with printouts of what was texted to her daughter, and you'd look, and it was 1:15 in the morning. What's your daughter doing on her phone at 1:15 in the morning? And then you would call, of course, the mother of or father of the person who did the texting, and they would come in with what the other person had done to initiate that, And so a lot of that stuff is mutual, and whoever cries bully first, gets the attention. I know here in Nevada we have a thing called Safe Voice, where it's an anonymous reporting tool that anybody can report a concern at any time, bullying that they've seen or experienced, or a school safety issue. Somebody said they were going to bring a gun or a knife or something, some kind of weapon to school. And unfortunately, there's so many false positives because students have found out they can use that as a bullying tool and call and say, hey, Billy has this or that in his locker, and they use that to harass each other too. And so it really is a big thing. There's no simple answer, but again, I think that as long as all of the adults that are connected to a particular student are doing what they can to remind them that, what the bullying is pretty universal. It's not something that, you think you're the only one experiencing it. And you mentioned your children, my children, me, when I was in school, I was an extreme minority where I went to school and, got what we call bullying today. We thought of it mostly as teasing, but, I think you need a lot of adult support. And I think that the devices need to go away somewhere, when it's bedtime, and let kids sleep.
And, one of the real challenges is that these are personal devices, right? So the school, it's really difficult to without, because you've got some parents who say, no, I want to be able to reach my child at any point in the day, and it's important that they have that phone in case there's an emergency. And yet, I think, you and I, we grew up and went through school pretty well without having our moms tethered to us, during the entire experience.
Well, and of course, once it's a lot easier to keep the cat in the bag than to get him back in there once you let it out. And they've experimented with different things over the last 20 years now, and when I was principal, the students just kept the phones put away, and if it went off, you'd get a warning, and if the kid was using it during class, and the second time, then the teacher would take it and give it back at the end of the period. Third time, it went to the office, and the parents had to come get it, and it cut down on a lot of it. But you have the parents that, again, feel like they need to be in constant contact, and we always said, you can call the office at any time. We'll come get that kid out of class, and they can talk to you on a landline. And none of the schools with which I've been affiliated ever had a policy to where if there's any kind of an emergency, the kid can't get their phone, turn it on.
Right.
If there is some kind of a lockdown or something of that nature. So when we want to influence somebody to our opinion, it's easy to come up with arguments that sound reasonable at the time, but as you said, we survived for several generations in public schools without having access to phones. Different, here in Nevada, some of the schools are trying putting sleeves on the phones, so the kids have to have their phones in a sleeve on their desk, and the sleeve dampens so that they can't. But then if there's an emergency, or if the teacher wants them to use it, some of our teachers had the kids use their phones for research,
right.
Had them use the calculators on their phones in math and engineering classes. So, there's a positive aspect of that too. So you can just take them out and use them. The thing that, I was alerted to very early in my administrative career is you've got this phone, you've got this Facebook account, you've got this Snapchat account that the student shares with their parent, and then you've got the real one. Right. So you've got your phone that's in your sleeve on your desk, and then you got the real cell phone in your hoodie pocket.
Right.
You've got your Facebook account that you share with your parents, and then you've got your real Facebook account.
Others, so, right.
But if parents aren't aware of that, then then that's a way that kids can get through. And like you said, they're personal devices. And do you want to have that argument every night of come on, give me your phone. It's time to go to bed. Come on, give me your phone.
Yeah. And we're seeing so many correlations to just, in addition to the issue of bullying, social media and the mental health crisis that many of our teens are experiencing. I believe it's Snapchat that has had a feature where you would have, you're not supposed to break this link between you and a friend, like, so every day you're supposed to check in. And so if you
Yeah.
are grounded by your parents and they take your phone, we had a niece who just about, you would have thought it was the end of the world, that she was not going to be able to check in, and was going to miss one of these days. And it's like, that definitely sounds like some, when we think about addictions, really
Hmm.
has us, wonder. I really wonder whether or not we're going to see, well, the Seattle's public schools have at least threatened to sue the tech industry, but I wonder if we're going to see, much like the cigarette, what we saw with cigarettes, if they're going to be class action suits as we get further into kids' developments and we start to see some of the long term ill effects of having this unfeathered, just constant access to social
Yeah.
media.
Well, and I know with your research, Ed, you're probably aware that it is literally an addiction. It's addiction to the positive hormones that are, the brain waves. I can't think of the term right now. Endorphins that
Endorphins, yeah.
happen because when you get one of the real challenges of a teenager is trying to get noticed, right? You're coming into your own. You want people to notice you. Well, social media is a way to get noticed. You got, how many likes do you get? How many people respond to one of your postings or and each of those builds a little bit of endorphin, and you get addicted to that endorphin. Normally, endorphins are a very positive chemical in our body, but when you get addicted to them, and you're right, they've shown that taking the cell phone away from teenagers is much the same. They have the same withdrawals as from a mild addiction, and they throw the same fits, if you will, and have the same physical and emotional pain as if they were withdrawing from something. The other thing is that, and the kids tell us that Facebook is for old people, and I think it is. They're using other platforms, but if you get on Facebook for very long and look at your old high school friends and the lives they're leading, it's like, wow, I wish I could lead that life. But you're seeing such a small glimpse of their life, right? I mean, if the basketball team I play on wins a gold medal, I'm going to put it on Facebook. If I take a great vacation, I'm going to put it on Facebook. Yeah. But, most of my life is pulling weeds, mowing lawns, fixing a broken sink, and you don't put that kind of stuff. So teenagers need to be reminded that what they see on social media is not anyone's real life.
Let's step away from our conversation for a moment for me to tell you about the Journalistic Learning Initiative's innovative educational tools and services. Of special note is JLI's Comfort Corner initiative, a video library featuring near-peer role models sharing about their mental health journeys. This innovative resource destigmatizes mental health challenges, provides a gateway to seeking professional help, and supports your students in realizing they're not alone. If you're looking to make the best decision for your teaching staff and students about AI adoption, improving student engagement, strengthening writing skills, promoting social media mindfulness, or enhancing college and career readiness, please take a moment to visit our website at journalisticlearning.org. Our team of University of Oregon researchers offer customized AI tools, instructional materials, professional development, and consulting. Research confirms that students with journalistic learning experience outperform their peers on numerous key indicators for college and career readiness. At the heart of our work is empowering learners to become effective communicators. If you think about it, effective communication is critical in every human interaction, whether it's writing an essay for a grade or being interviewed to secure employment. Since 2015, JLI has benefited nearly 20,000 students and served schools in 15 states and the District of Columbia. I invite you to schedule an appointment to explore how JLI can improve your students' learning outcomes. Now back to our program. Well, this also addresses another, teaching at the college level. What I hear from some of my students is that they have missed out on having that sort of anonymity and starting their lives fresh when they enter college, because there's a trail of images from the awkward braces they had in middle school and everything that has this sort of social media footprint. So it used to be, you go to college, you make new friends, you kind of discover yourself, and it's like, nobody knows much about you. But now many of them are coming to school and they've got this whole history of everything their parents have ever posted about them, and it's not allowing them to really have the luxury of any kind of, fresh start.
Fresh start. I hadn't considered that, Ed, but that's a very good point, because I can remember that for myself. Growing up on a Indian reservation and then going away to college, and nobody knew me. They didn't know anything about me, and I fell in with a whole different group of characters, as it were, and got a fresh start, socially, athletically, academically, all those things. And boy, that would be tough. I was really glad they didn't have pictures of me in junior high and all my college buddies.
Yeah. Let me ask you about another topic I know you speak on, which is teacher burnout. We're losing so many teachers. There's shortages in so many states and districts. What is the work that you do around that?
Yeah. So first, getting back just briefly to, you mentioned the school safety. The other piece that I talk on a lot is the importance of school climate, because we found that schools that have a very positive school climate have far less of those issues that we've been talking about for the last, several minutes. So they've shown through multiple bodies of research that school climate and culture has a stronger impact on student achievement as well as safety than even quality instruction. And so that's a big piece that we don't need to get into, but I did want to bring that up, the importance of culture and climate in bullying and in teacher retention. So that's the segue into that, is that, people that are leaving the profession, it's not usually just because of the money, or it's not usually just because of dissatisfaction. It's because they're not working in a climate and culture in which they feel that they have a big piece, right? The John Hattie's research shows that the strongest influence is the shared belief amongst the adults in a school that you're doing something great for kids. That's going to make your school better than any other thing that you can do. And we have younger leadership now. The model that you and I probably experienced was a teacher might teach for 10, 12, 15 years and then be a VP dean for a while, and then maybe finish their career in their mid 40s to mid 50s as a principal. And now you have people that want to be a principal by 30. You hear people say that I'm going to be a principal by 30 and a superintendent by 35, and they don't really have those trials by fire that you might have had as a longtime head coach. I coached basketball for 22 years before I went into administration, and so I sat in my board meetings and got yelled at. I sat in the principal's office and had to answer hard questions and face parents that were very angry for various reasons. And I think that we get younger leaders that are certainly knowledgeable and enthusiastic, but they don't have that long-term experience of working through problems, working with people that are angry. And so teachers don't feel as supported. I spoke at a conference last week in Los Angeles, and somebody talked to me after my presentation and said, Dan, at our school in Bakersfield, California, we've had 3 teachers quit this year since the start of the year. They just walked away. And it's because we have a new principal that is 29 years old and wants us all to do things the way that they did. But the principals from our district, and we know that they weren't a successful classroom teacher, and yet they're in a position of authority. And so I think those kind of things, having younger, inexperienced leadership, and I think that having parents that are I'm going to say more aware of what's going on. And, there's a cute cartoon that I had in my office, and it said 1955, and it had a picture of a student and a parent standing in front of a teacher's desk. and the parent was holding a report card with an F on it, and the parent was yelling at the kid. And then there's a picture of 2015, and it's all the same except the teachers yelling, the parents yelling at the teacher. And I think that the teachers are under more of a microscope. We didn't have all the standardized testing with the public posting of scores.
Right.
And we know that scores are most closely tied to parent educational attainment and average family income in a school district than they are to any, quality of teaching or any of those natures. In fact, a friend of mine that's kind of a smart aleck like myself, he did a piece, a little study where he found, he divided Reno, which is about an hour north of me, into their elementary school districts. And he found a correlation between the number of golf carts in driveways and student achievement. And so he said, if we would just buy every family a golf cart, we could raise student achievement throughout Reno. And of course, he's being silly,
yes.
But that's what, that's part of what the things we hear. We get lied to so much in education, right? No child will be left behind. Really? You ever seen a bell curve? Some kids are going to be left behind. That doesn't mean we don't love them and push them as hard and as far as we can, right? But it puts a lot of pressures on teachers to move every kid along at the same pace to the same place, right? We get told that you need to go to college. Well, college is great. You and I went to college. You work at a college. I've done some adjunct professorships, but right now in America, we're sending 56% of our kids to college, and we need to send 28% of our kids. So that other half can't get a family wage job in their degree field, and they have debt. So why do we lie to kids for 8 years and tell them they need to go to college? One of the school districts with which I was briefly affiliated, the kindergartners all got a shirt that said kinder to college. And so all through until their 10th, 11th grade year, they get that. And then some well-meaning counselor comes along and meets with the parents and say, your kid really has a knack with mechanics. He might want to go to trade school. He's going to make more money as a welder or a mechanic than he's going to make as a whatever he was going to go to college for. And they think, well, why have you been telling me for 10 years then? You've been lying to me? What are you telling me? So we've got that. As teachers, we get lied to, about those kind of things all the time. No child will be left behind. We all need to go to college. There's one path to success. And if you believe those things, and there's no reason not to as a young educator, then it puts extra stress. So education was ranked number 4. Oh, let me step back, Ed. You said I've been talking for quite a while about staff wellness and how we can take care of ourselves. What started it is...
Go right ahead.
Yeah, so I was principal at a very high achieving school on the shores of Lake Tahoe, and it was my first principalship, and the teachers just weren't having the fun that me and my friends had as teachers. And I couldn't figure out why. And it took my secretary, of course, they're usually the smartest person in the building, to say, Dan, it's the stress that teachers are under now. So I studied stress that summer. That's what educators do, right? We study and say, okay, what's this stress thing? And I found out everything I could about stress in general and stress in education. And I made a 90-minute presentation to my staff. Well, teachers talk. So the next year I gave it to 3 neighboring schools. The next year at the state conference, next year at the national conference, and so on. And that extra, when I started doing that research, education was the 4th most stressful profession in our country, behind air traffic controller number 1, surgeon number 2, and emergency responder number 3. And now for the last 4 years, education has been the most stressful profession in our country.
So what did you discover in your research that was a way to support teachers in managing that stress?
Well, it's a multi-pronged approach, because we get stressed when we see something that we perceive as averse happening to us or our students, and our mind immediately asks the question subconsciously, do I care about this? And if you don't really care, it's like, well, okay, that's someone else's problem. But if you do care, then our minds immediately and subconsciously ask a second question, that's, Can I control this thing that's coming my way? And if the answer to that is yes, we're at our best as humans. Humans are at their best when they're problem solving, especially when we're doing it together, going back to that John Hattie research. But when we see something that's averse to ourselves or our students, and we don't feel empowered to handle it, to make a change, that's when we get stressed out. And so the first thing we need to do is look at our perceptions. Is what you're perceiving as averse really averse? Warren Buffett, the gazillionaire, said, everything that happened in my life that I considered a disaster at the time has turned out for the better. And I think about all the time we lay awake at night worrying about something that never happens, right? 2 weeks later, you can't even remember what it was. And so that's part of it, is just kind of changing our perceptions and realizing that not everything is necessarily bad, and things are rarely as bad as we think in our minds that they're going to be.
And
again, psychological research.
This cloud too, most of it's temporary. This cloud too will pass, right?
Oh yeah. That's a great way to think of it. Yeah. And then, so then you can also look at your priorities. Are you being concerned about the right thing? Is this really a problem? Or is it something I talk myself into? Past the age of 12 for girls and 14 for boys, most of what we perceive about ourselves and the world around us comes from what we tell ourselves about ourselves and the world around us, our self-talk. So if you can control your self-talk, what you're telling yourself about yourself and the world around you, that's a big one. The other thing is that the media, and I know that you've been involved in the media. I've been interviewed, on television and speak at conferences, and I'm not anti-media, but a lot of times the media is looking for headlines and they blow things out of proportion.
Right.
Once I was here when we had those wildfires, I think it was 3 years ago. There was a small group of people from out of town that were setting fires just upwind of this luxury home so that people would evacuate and they could rob them. And there was a community, a group that started a citizens patrol. And my school board chair was concerned that some of our parents weren't acting appropriately. So he asked the sheriff and the fire chief to call a town hall meeting. And they met for an hour and a half and told people what they legally could and couldn't do in terms of being a citizen patrol. The next morning, my phone rang in my office at about 6:30, and I answered. I said, "Yes, this is Mr. Wold." And I said, "Is this Dan Wold, the superintendent?" I said, "Yes, it is." "Oh, this is CNN from Washington, D.C., and we'd like you to comment on your school board chair leading an armed militia to keep people of color out of your community." I said, what? And so if you realize that the media does things like that, to get headlines, to get viewership, then sometimes that's, and there's that thing too where you can put 150 red ants and 150 black ants in a jar with everything they need to survive, and they'll get along great until you shake the jar. Mm-hmm. And then they start attacking each other. And so if you're experiencing a lot of stress in your school or your community, who's shaking your jar? Is it an event that happened in your community? Is it a new leader that has a harebrained idea that's not, empirically sound or proven through double-blind research that's been peer-reviewed, those kinds of things. So if you can say, did I talk myself into this being a problem? Did the media talk me into this being a problem? Or is somebody else trying to make a problem to take our focus off our mission? That can take a lot of that stress away. And then if you can work on your locus of control and realize that you control your self-talk, you control how you treat other people, you control how you spend your resources, and you control the risk you take. And if you can take control of those things in your life and let the rest of it go, then you don't get to that point to where you're all stressed out. And when you do get stressed out, and all of us do, even me. I mean, I'm the stress guru. I've talked for the last 16 years all over the country about stress in education, and I still get stressed out. We can't help it. It's just part of the human condition. But to keep from spiraling into burnout, to use the term that you used, and disease and health failures, you just need to take some steps. When you feel yourself starting to get stressed out, you got to ask yourself, okay, what's going on? Because stress has helped us survive as a human species for 200,000 generations. So it's not really a bad thing. It's just if we don't address it properly. And then once you figure out what's causing you stress, and you do what you can, and you're still a little stressed, then do something physical. Take a walk, go swimming, go for a hike, do yoga. Even getting a massage will take you out of that frontal cortex and put you back in your lizard brain and make you feel human again. Another thing you can do is have a support network. Right? It might be a PLC at your professional learning community at your school. It might be your brothers. I have 3 brothers. I can call any of them anytime and say, hey, I'm experiencing this. And you get it off your chest, you get another perspective, and usually you find out you're not the only one with that problem. And another thing that you can do when you're feeling stressed out is just distract yourself a little bit. Eat something that you enjoy in small quantities. I mean, you don't want to eat a whole bag of Ruffles or a whole box of chocolates, but something to get you back out of that frontal cortex. But there's a lot of things you can do. Deep breathing is great. Visualization is great. Close your eyes and go to your happy place. I play in a band with a child psychologist with 2 PhDs, and she says the biggest change in the last 10, 12 years is that she used to tell kids to go to the happy place. Now she has to teach them what a happy place is. Oh, wow. And isn't that sad for kids, wow. Right? Yeah. But you can go to your happy place. If you go to your happy place and do deep breathing, it doesn't just double, it's a compounding effect. So do something to address your stress. It doesn't really matter so much what. I mean, all those things, you can Google them and find out what they are. But do something to address your stress. And it's really, really hard, Ed, to address stress without talking about the things that affect stress, like sleep, nutrition, and movement. And so I found out over the years as I've spoken that I need to also give some sleep tips and some nutrition tips and some movement tips to help people battle those health crises that can come our way.
Thank you so much, Dan. How do people find you, your website or your consulting services on the internet?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. That'd be the easiest, Dan Wold. Just look up on LinkedIn. I don't have a website. I just, people from word of mouth hear about my work and ask me to come to their school district or their conference. Anyone can email me at cresthiker@yahoo.com. It's Crest Hiker, one word. My life goal is to hike the Pacific Crest Trail from Mexico to Canada, 2,600 miles.
Wow.
I don't know if I'll get that done as I'm getting more and more gray hair. Yeah. But so that's why my email address is cresthiker@yahoo.com. And I'd love to go help teachers. Education was such a great career for me for 43 years. And if I can give anything back to the people I love the most, educators, I'd be glad to.
Thank you so much, sir.
And you keep doing your good work, Ed.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. The Ed Leader's Edge podcast is produced by the Journalistic Learning Initiative. Please check out our latest books, Language Arts in Action from W.W. Norton Publishing, and Raising Empowered Learners from Rauman and Littlefield. For more information about our work, please visit journalisticlearning.org or edleaderedge.org. Thanks for listening.